Greetings, music lovers. I'm going to do something a bit different today. I'm going to take you through the process of doing a fully notated piano accompaniment. Now, of course, all pianists and all accompanists, they fall into two camps basically. There's the camp that only play the notes that are written down by someone who's already done the accompaniment. That would be people who've had classical training. And then there's the other camp of people who play by ear and jazz musicians, and they will generally just use the lead sheet or just play by ear, and nothing will be written down, but they'll just play it the way they feel it, play it the way it occurs to them. And it can be very good like that. Very good. I mean, if you look at most of the great pianists, like Oscar Peterson and who was the guy that was nearly blind? Art Tatum, and guys that are blind or were blind, like Ray Charles and of course Stevie Wonder. Most of the great jazz players did not read and write music. I guess that there are exceptions. The ones that wrote for big band, like Duke Ellington, obviously would have written music, would have written notation down, but most of them did not. People like Charlie Parker and John Coltrane, they wouldn't have written stuff down. Maybe the melody, they might have written a lead sheet, maybe. But yeah, definitely not fully notated arrangements, multi-part arrangements, definitely not. So they're the two schools, and even a guy like Elton John, I don't think he wrote his arrangements down. Maybe I'm wrong, but I doubt it. He might have written a lead sheet, and that would have been it, at a guess. And the same goes for most of the famous pop music you hear and see, and music clips, and what you hear from the golden age of music. Most of those bands didn't or couldn't read music, and certainly didn't write it down. Like the Beatles never wrote anything down. I don't think they could even read. I mean, maybe McCartney could read a little bit, but I don't know. Certainly they never wrote it down. So any music you buy, Beatles music, someone else has written it down. And the same goes for most bands, with Black Sabbath or Deep Purple. I mean, John Lord could write music down, but did he write it down? He certainly didn't do arrangements for Deep Purple. He did orchestral arrangements, but there's no way that he would have written down Ritchie Blackmore's guitar lines, or for that matter, Roger Glover's bass lines. He wouldn't have touched them. They would have been up to them, and they wouldn't have written it down. So they just played by feel, and it varied from night to night. And I understand why they do it that way. It's a completely different way of thinking about the music, whether you have it all written down or whether you just do it from the way it feels. Completely different way of looking at it, and you'd certainly get a freer and more potentially more interesting result if you work purely from feel. But you will not get the sophistication, the perfection that you can achieve by writing it down and go through the painstaking process of getting every note right. Putting it all together, all the parts, making sure they all work together, making sure that there's no jarring notes. Unless you want a jarring note, right? So that's what the composer does. That's what I do. And there's not many of us in the world who are genuine composers who write it all down, write all the parts down, and go through and meticulously look at how every note's relating to every other note, especially the notes at the same time. Look at the harmonies, look at what you're trying to achieve. There's a lot of considerations if you're trying to achieve perfection. And all of the great classical composers went through this. They all they all went through the process of trying to get it right. And you can only do that. You can really only do that if you write it down. Sure, I'm sure you can say, oh, Stevie Wonder, he was a genius, and he couldn't read music because he was blind, but he got it all right, did he? And you can say the same about all these other people who don't write it down, but somehow miraculously get a great result. But if you look at the big ensemble numbers, orchestral numbers, big band numbers, it's all written down. Look at the perfection achieved by Richard Rodgers, from numerous great musicals like The Sound of Music. Perfection. And, it's written down. So, I'm not the only person who writes everything down. Sure, there's all the famous people, they all wrote it down, all the famous composers. But there's not that many of us, really, when you think about how many musicians there are in the world, how many singers, how many guitarists, how many pianists in the world, the number that actually have devoted decades to composing and writing it down, everything, multi-parts written down. There's not that many of us. So, if you want to be, I'm 64 at the moment. I've been writing music down since I was 10, so 54 years ago. Although I did go through a period of a decade or so when I didn't really write anything down. Maybe more than a decade. Probably at least 15 years where I didn't write anything down. But I've probably been writing stuff down for at least 30 years, more than 30 years. Let's say 30 years. So in that time, I've learnt quite a lot about arrangement. Arrangement is underrated by people who don't understand what's involved. People think arrangement is an easy job. People think that the real genius comes in the composition, writing a lead sheet, right? That's composition, writing a lead sheet. The melody and the harmony. The chords, the melody, and the feel, perhaps. Those three things, that's the heart of the song, right? Or any piece, doesn't have to be a song, but that's the heart of the piece. And if you can do that, you're the genius, and anyone else who does anything else, like the arranger, who turns that lead sheet into, 4, 5, 8, 20 different parts and makes them all work together, he's some kind of hack. Well, no, he's not. I can tell you from a lot of experience. Like I say, I've been writing songs since I was 10, and I've been writing them down. Well, some of them I wrote down early on, but mainly in the last 30 years I've been writing my songs down. I've written like 270 songs. They're all written down, every one of them. And quite a lot of them have been arranged, not all of them. I can tell you that the arrangement is much more difficult and a much longer process than actually writing the song in the first place. Depending on how many parts you're doing, but generally speaking, it's substantially more work in doing an arrangement than there is in producing a lead sheet. And as for guys like Lennon and McCartney who knock over a song in a day, well, sure, I can and do knock over songs in a day, or less than a day. Knock over a song in 3 hours, no problem. But then, that's if you just want to write the words and you remember the tune and you just write the words down with the chords above it. That's how most rock bands write their stuff down. The words with the chords above it. That's all you need, and you just remember the melody. You remember the feel, and you remember the part that you invented. That's how I used to work when I was in rock bands as a teenager, but not anymore. So you can definitely knock over a song in a day, and because it's an interesting business writing a song, and I hope to do one of these clips where I take you through the process of writing a song, because it can be a very interesting experience. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in doing it that you don't have to go through when you're doing an arrangement. But conversely, there's a lot of stuff in an arrangement that you don't do when you're writing the lead sheet. And I can tell you that you can definitely write a song in a day, no problem. But the arrangement, probably going to take you multiple days. The simplest arrangement you can do is, of course, a piano arrangement. But even the piano arrangement still take you some days. You might write the song in a day, and it might take you 2 or 3 or 4 days to do the arrangement. It's not easy, and a lot of thought goes into it. Unless it's a very short and simple song, then maybe arrangement can be pretty quick. And if you've got to do arrangement for a lot of parts, it's going to take you quite a while. But the piano essentially it's the simplest way to do it. But it's also there's a lot in a piano, because the way I work, I'm really looking at 4 parts when I write a piano piece. You can see from here, I've just finished this arrangement of a jazz music theory lesson, and you can see that I'm actually working in 4 parts. So there'll be the bass, low bass. Then there'll be a mid bass, like a tenor part. Then there'll be the melody, of course, and then there's this part underneath the melody, which is like an alto part you could think of. So if you were doing, you could translate any of these my piano arrangements to orchestral arrangements if you wanted to. These 2 notes would be bass and cello. These would be strings perhaps, or horns. These would be woodwind, and then your melody would be whatever you wanted to use for melody, whether it's a person or whether it's a violin or a clarinet or something, flute. But all of those things are happening on the piano, because the beauty of the piano is you've got 10 fingers and you can easily play 6 or more notes at once, easily. And that's what I do in my arrangements. So, I've told you that it's a difficult and time-consuming business, and it requires it's a more mathematical thing than writing the melody. Writing the melody and getting the harmony, the chords in the melody, doing that, you're concentrating on the germ of the song and trying to get that germ down on the paper, trying to expand it into a full song. So it's a very creative process, whereas this one is much more working out how the different parts are going to support the song, how to make that song, present that song in the best possible way. That's the art of arrangement, and it requires no less genius than writing the song in the first place. If you're going to do a good one, like any hack arranger can churn out something. But to get a magic arrangement that really sounds good, never jars, and really brings the melody out and gives the performers a chance to shine, that's a gift to be able to do that. I mean, it's a different gift to the gift of being able to write the song in the first place, which is a really rare gift. Really rare gift. But, don't put down the arranger. I can tell you from experience, arranging is hard, and anyone that can do good arrangements, I take my hat off to them. I like my arrangements, but I also admire other people's arrangements. All the famous, like the Hollywood musicals from the Golden Age, fantastic arrangements. And you listen to symphonies from masters like Beethoven and Tchaikovsky, you know, fantastic arrangements, really incredible, and got to take your hat off to those guys. All right, so I'm going to take you through it. So I'll just close this one. Here is a lead sheet for this song I wrote, Too Much Wheat, which I wrote 2 years ago when I was in WA. So that's the lead sheet, right? It's simple. And this song itself is simple. There's no accidentals in this song. It's a simple song. So, I'll just take it out of the piano and show you what I've got in mind. So the first thing I do is I just play it naturally as I normally would, without any arrangement, right? Just the way it would normally occur to me to play it, which is like this. I mean, that's just the way I normally play things. I guess you could say it's my natural style is to play things like that. So a low note in the bass, or either one or two, either just one or one note in the bass, and then an arpeggio on top of it in the mid bass, and then the melody in the right hand with a bit of supporting chords in the right hand. So you get that's just the normal way that I play things usually, depending what the mood is. But this kind of feel, I mean, I could try something different, like I could do this my Schubert way. But I don't want to. How else could I do it? Big chords, maybe. Big chords would be another way. I think, you know, it just seems to work best like this. Seems to work best. I mean, it's derivative of my style, but so what? So it seems to work best. If I could think of a better way to do it, I probably would do it a different way. But that's the way it occurs to me. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it in that style. What I usually do is I'll start by just writing down what I would normally play. So I would normally just play this. So I could start with a doubled octave. Come on, Mars, get it together. I think in this case I don't want the doubled octave. It's more natural to play it just more natural. So okay, work that out. So I'm going to I'm just going to do that. Let's go to the computer and I'll start typing it in. Alright, back at the computer. So, commence the process of generating a piano arrangement from a lead sheet. So I've got the lead sheet. I'm going to start creating the fully notated accompaniment. Now I'm using Forte version 8. There's a lot of different notation programs out there. This is the one that I like. I don't love it. I mean, I partly love it because I've done so much stuff with Forte and its predecessor, MIDIsoft Studio, which was taken over by Verlag, and this was the first version that they rewrote themselves, I think, version 8. I think it's on the path to difference. So is it better than the original MIDIsoft? I mean, there's various versions of MIDIsoft. Not necessarily. I can tell you that whether it's MIDIsoft or whether it's a Forte 8, they both contain quite a few bugs. And I've had to put up with these bugs for the past 30 years doing my arrangements. And I've come to know all the bugs. And I just put up with them and I work around them. I like the way it's originally thought out. I like the way that you can generate different views of the same file, the same notation. You can generate parts, individual parts, but you can also generate some parts together, or you can generate all parts together, you know, and you can have as many different views of the score as you like. And you can't, as far as I know, do that with other notation programs like certainly not like Sibelius, and I didn't like Sibelius and MuseScore. A lot of people are using these days, and I've had to learn that, and I mean, it's got its positive aspects, and I can understand why some people would like it, but I prefer the way that this works. It's horses for courses. You've got to find something that works the way you want it to. So this does. It works the way I want it to. Unfortunately, it's got a heap of bugs, which are a pain, but you just have to get used to them, or if you want to use this product. Otherwise, you can try using MuseScore, and it's got its own pain in the ass things. So, take your pick. But this is what I'm using. Partly, this is it. If I found something that I liked better, I would probably use that. But it's all right. Forte, I know how to make it work. It's not a very popular program, but it works the way I want it to. So here we go. So I'm going to generate a new file from a template. So let's have a new score from template. I generate my own templates. I don't like the templates that come with it. I don't like them. I like the ones that I generate. So I guess that everyone can do that. Get it the way you want it, and then you can work the way you want. All right, so we've got two windows. I'll just get rid of these two things for the moment. Two windows. So what I want to do is copy all these notes across to the voice and also to the piano's right hand. Now I have separate staves for the right hand and the left hand. It's not just separate staves, it's a separate instrument. If you use the one instrument, it mixes up the right and the left hands, and then you find you want to separate them and you can't, because it doesn't distinguish, they just appear on one staff or the other. So I use completely separate instruments and I bracket them together so that they look like they're just one instrument, but really internally it's two separate instruments. So I know that those instruments are never going to get confused with each other. The right and the left hand will never be confused. Alright, so let's just copy the notes. Oh, first we've got to select a key, so this one's in G. Well, it's really an E minor, I guess. But, oh, it's G. G/E minor. I'd better bring back properties and, is it elements? It's elements, right? Keys. Give me G. Alright. Changes them all to G. Cool. I guess we can get rid of that again for the moment. Alright, so we've got all those. We'll just copy them across. Change to select. Copy them across. It didn't copy them. So this is what I mean by bugs, right? It's just full of bugs. There we go. Full of bugs. Alright, so this voice, because it's written for me, male voice, and it's nice to read. It's generally, as a singer, it's nice to read it on the treble clef, even if you're a man and most of your notes are in the bass clef, especially if you're a bass like me. Most of the notes are in the bass clef, and I can read the bass clef, it's fine, but I like to read it in the treble clef. So what I do is just transpose that down. Hang on, I've got to bring this back up. So actions, what we want to do is transpose by interval. I want to take it down an octave. Boom. Right. And what speed do we want? 90. So I'll just change that to 90. I mean, this is cool. Stuff's all set up in the template, so it makes it a lot easier for me. And I'll just grab the chords. There we go, chord symbol. I'll copy them across, put them on top of the vocal line, and then we just grab the lyrics. Now in theory you can grab everything at once, but my experience in this program is buggy and the results are unlikely to be good if you do that, in my experience. Hang on. I put them in the wrong spot. Get rid of this. So theoretically, we've got a mess, theoretically, I think. Yes, we've got a mess. See, look at this. This is bugs. It's just a pain to deal with. So I'm not saying that I would recommend anyone else use this product. I use it because I'm used to it. I don't use it because I think it's, perfect, because it bloody is not. So I'll just close that. Hang on. I thought I saved it already. Whatever. So, too much wheat with piano accompaniment. Hope I spelt that right. Right, that's closed. Now let's bring it back up again and hope that when it comes back in, it'll fix up the error, which it did not. The error is here. That is not what was originally written. So now I've got to go see what it's supposed to be. Why is that a quaver? Maybe that was right. Alright, grab the lyric again. So we want it on this quaver. But this what has it done? Oh, this is a 2/4 bar. That's not. It's not a bug, it's my idiosyncrasies. So sometimes I do this, sometimes I feel a bar is, sometimes I feel half a bar and then start again, which is what I've done here. And then we convert it back to 4/4. And hope that it does it correctly. Yeah, I think that's right. Is there any more surprises like that? Yes, right at the end. I do this a bit. It's just something I do. So, oh, there's another one here. Hang on, how many are there? There's one there. Where it comes down. And we've got to get the right number of, we've got to have a matching number of bars per line. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right. 5. So, oh, stop it. Oh, this is because you have to select. It was trying to insert instead of select. You know, these are the kind of things that are very irritating when you're trying to learn the program. So we go there, we're on this line here, we're coming down, and that has to be 2/4. So let's go back to 2/4. Has to be 2/4. So confusing, right? It's very confusing. Very confusing. I guess if I put the words in, but if I put the words in, will I get confused? Maybe not. Let's try. It'll be easy with the words in. Change it back to select. Alright, let's grab the words. Okay. So it starts here. Right. So the next 2/4 bit is scarcely a weed, so it goes there. Right. It's just a bit easy to work with. Scarcely a weed wants to be 2/4, and then we go back to 4/4, and then that means that this line has to be 5 bars. Now this is something that's very difficult to do in MuseScore. So but very easy to do in Forte. So every notation program has its pros and cons. Definitely pros and cons. Alright, and then the final one is canola. So we go to canola and make that a 2/4. Then we go back to 4/4 again. And then we make that a 5-bar line, or a 5-bar system it's called. And we don't need the rest, so we delete from 28 to the end. Oh, first we save it, because if you make a mistake after you've deleted, you can't get it back. Score, remove 28 to the end. I don't know where the end is, but I'll just put in an arbitrarily high number of bars and it'll just take it to the end. For some reason you can't put the name of your publishing company there in a template. I don't know why, but it's another bug in the program, which there are many, many bugs in this program. Alright. Now we need more room between the staffs for the words, to allow the words. And we've got to put those stems down so they don't bang into the lyrics. It's very annoying trying to read a sheet of music when the lyrics are all jammed up with note stems. Makes it very hard. Alright. We still need a bit more room could make this page 3 systems to the page. Let's do that. In fact, we can go right back to here, spacing. So we want systems per page and make it 3, and that'll automatically make room. There we go. So that's nice and legible. You can work with that. That's good. Save. Alright, copy the title. You can't just copy the whole field, you have to copy the words itself, and you have to change it inside. It's a bug. It's a bug, of which there are many. Right. Yes, I wrote the words and the music to this one. I mean, sometimes I write both. Sometimes I write one, sometimes I write the other. Sometimes I just do arrangements. I mean, I do whatever I feel like, basically. I have the skills to do any of these things, and that's what I do. I could make a bit more of a gap at the top. I think that could be good. So let's have margins. Make it 3 centimeters at the top. A little bit more room, looks a bit better. Okay, so this one is now done. We get rid of the lead sheet. We're finished with the lead sheet. Now we can concentrate on the arrangement. So there's the right hand of the piano will be, I'll be playing that. So I'll just grab all of those, grab the notes that are the right hand of the piano. And I want to change the voice. So by making voice 3, when I go to write stuff underneath it, which will be like this, I'll get a separate voice, you see. I don't know whether I'm going to do 2. I mean, the simplest thing is just to do 2 underneath. What I do is, if I've got a note coming directly afterwards, you're wondering why I didn't go D, B, G, because the next note's a B. So I don't want that to clash. This harmony line, this alto, if you like, or supporting harmony line, I don't want that clashing directly with the note that comes next. In this case, they're going up, so they won't clash. In this case, it's hanging around, so it probably won't clash. You can certainly get away with it. I could just play. I can just do that. But I've got to say, I do like a bit of distance between the melody and the supporting block harmony. I like a bit of distance. Also, it's good to have the melody in octaves because it reinforces the strength of the melody. Now, we've got this tied note. The D comes in on top of the tied note, which is a bit weird. So I'm going to just experiment. I'll make that a dotted quarter note, and then I can just come in on this one and adjust the so that I want a D there. It's coming in half a note early on the D, which is probably I don't know, is it okay? I won't know until I try it. This is what I do, is I'll generate the stuff and then I'll try it on the piano, or I'll start on the piano and just write it out by hand, which is very common. I do a lot of that stuff. I'll show you in a minute when I go and do it. Okay, so there's just another one coming in half a note early. So again, this has got to get turned back to a dotted quarter note, or as we call it, dotted crotchet. So Americans like to work in half, quarter, eighth notes, whereas course, I grew up with crotchets, quavers, minims, semi-breves, etc. Anyway, so we just make that go for an extra crotchet, which you just have to know is 240, because it's not a thing that people do. I suppose double dot might cover it. Anyway, that's the first line, and then in the bass I'm going to play arpeggios in the bass, as you might recall. I can't remember exactly how they went, so I'll just sketch this in and I'll fix it up when I take it out to the piano. I could make this a bit bigger, it's a bit hard to see what I'm doing. Zoom in. Alright. We got an E. Okay, so what I know from experience is if the note, this is just my style, like everyone's got their own arrangement style. This is a style that I've developed. When I'm doing an arpeggio in the bass, I don't go up by a third if it's below the lowest note. If it's below the G, I don't go up by a third, I'll go up by a fifth if I'm starting on the tonic. So here I've got G, so G, B, D, G. Here I could have gone E, G, B, but that's too close together when it's below the G line. So we don't do that. Now, the only thing I formally learnt from arrangement is I read Rimsky-Korsakov's book on orchestration. And I highly recommend anyone that wants to know about orchestration to read Rimsky-Korsakov's book, because Rimsky-Korsakov, Nikolai Rimsky-Korsakov, what an incredible composer and arranger. I mean, you listen to Scheherazade, what a masterpiece, a masterclass in arrangement. If you haven't listened to Rimsky-Korsakov, go out and listen to it. I mean, he's known for the Flight of the Bumblebee, but that's not exactly the most magic arrangement by any means. But listen to his other stuff. Scheherazade, Night on a Bald Mountain. There's other stuff. What else am I thinking of? Anyway, he wrote, and his operas and ballet music. Did he write the Capture at Cars? I can't remember, but some incredible arrangement. Anyway, his book, he's one of the few great composers who've written a book on the subject, so well worth a read. Anyway, I'll condense it for you. When you're down low, your whole process is you want to emulate the harmonic series. I do know a lot about music theory, and I'm going to do a series of clips about the foundations of music, and I will be discussing the harmonic series. But you need to know about the harmonic series, and it basically goes, you start down low, an octave above that, fifth above that, fourth above that, third above that, a fourth above that, and so on. And a lot of notes in the scale are in the harmonic series, but not all the notes. Not all the notes are there. But anyway, that's the way it starts out. Octave, fifth, fourth, third. That's the way it works. And so that's the way you should do your arrangements. Down low, you've got the octave, then you'll have a fifth, then you'll have a fourth on top of that, which will be 2 octaves above the root, and then you'll have thirds above that. So if you're starting down on this E, or below the E, let's look at the E. So from E, you could go E, and then octave would be that, and then the fourth above that would be the A, and then fifth above that would be the B, fourth above that would be the E, and then above the E you'd get thirds, like E followed by G. So, which is these things. They do the thirds. There's the third there. This is just a loose way of looking at it. Down the bottom you've got the octaves, and then a fifth here. Here's your fifth, and there's the fourth on top of the fifth, right? And then there's a third on top of the fourth. So ideally there'd be an E below that. So the octave to the E, a fifth up to the B, fourth up to the E again, and then a third to the G. And that's the way it's supposed to work. That's the harmonic series, and that's the essence of what Rimsky-Korsakov talks about in his book. And I use it. I think it's a great way to work. It sounds great. The trick is, don't have a lot of notes close together in the low bass, especially the G and below. Do not play thirds in the low bass. There are cases where you can get away with it, but very specific cases, generally speaking, no, don't do it. So you want to be at least a G and above to play a third, even as an arpeggio. And when you're playing close harmony, if you're playing actual block harmony in the bass, you don't really want thirds low down. So anyway, so there we go. That was it. I think if I can remember it, I don't know if I can remember it. There's a C. So I would typically do this. Again, just following the harmonic series. Like that. And then we've got a bit of repetition there, so I'll just copy those across. Oh, before I do, I like the root note to ring on. The root note to ring on, and the other notes in the arpeggio not necessarily to ring on. So to do that, we need a second voice, so that then becomes voice 2. And then we make it ring on and make them all minims, or if you like, half notes. Boom, like that. So they're voice 2, they're voice 1. You can imagine if this were a band or an orchestra or something, there's your bass going down, and then, I don't know, violins or some second violins going up, whatever. Like so. And what I'm going to do, this looks a bit confusing up here, but I'll show you what I'm going to do. I chose the melody to be voice 3 because I always intended to make voice 1, because I've got to do the second part, which is this. I always intended those to be voice 2. But when you are entering new notes, they default to voice 1, at least in this program they do. So you've got to highlight them, make them voice 2, and then it's an easy matter to just copy the from bar 1 to bar 5, and we just want voice 3, which is all those, and we'll make that voice 1, which is what I wanted ideally. So just copy it back, and as soon as you do that, the stems go down, the stems go up, it's easy to read, and voila, you've got an arrangement. So now let's take that over to the piano. I'm going to print it out, I'll take it over to the piano and work on it there. Okay, here I am with the music. I've just printed it out, so now I play it and see how it sounds. The first bar. Straight away there's a clash. You don't want, if you want harmony, don't play unisons. So there is 2 G's an octave apart, so we can't have that. So to avoid that, also, is that good, or would I be better with that? I mean, it could be that. Or it could be, that's a way. I don't know, my subconscious just automatically does this stuff. There's a way to do it. There's no clash there, so I could do that. Instead of playing the third, I play the fifth. The other way would be maybe start lower. But then we can't play the third because it clashed with the B. Very awkward. I could do an octave, and then the D, and then can't be the G, so I got all the way to a B. Bit awkward. do that, or I can do. That's definitely the easier way. So I think for the moment I'm going to stick with that. So I'll just correct this. Now the question is, did I want to play it like this? Or like that? You could go either way. I do like the openness of the bigger gap between the melody and the block. You know, that instead of that. But you can go either way. Alright, next chord's the E minor. Works. It works. Now the other thing I wanted to talk about is the if you're scoring for a bass voice, you've got to consider your bass note is going to be close to the bass voice. This doesn't occur until the third line, but down on the third line I've got this. Of all the wheat grown in Australia today. Now I can just write a standard bass note, use the root or whatever for the same way as I would with just the instrumental, but because it's the bass voice and it's the melody, the note has to work with the voice. So I could play a G there, of all the, or I could play a B, of all the. If I play the B, I'll clash with the B that's coming in the next note in the melody. So ideally you do not want your bass note to clash. You do not want the bass note to be the same note as the note you're going to sing, right? It could be an octave below, but ideally it would be a third or possibly a fifth. A third is ideal. So that works, right? So I would be playing a G there. That'll work. It won't clash with the B. If I did it like this, I'm hitting the B again, you see? So I don't want that. So that's the G. The next one is an E. Wheat grown in I could use anything because it's a higher, it's in the higher part of my voice. So you play another G there. There you go, that's a tenth between the bass note and the voice, which is a wonderful interval, the tenth. I could do that. Of course, I've just played a G. I'm going to play a G again for the E minor, but I could do it. Or I could use the root note, which would be the E, or a high E, but not the B, because that would be an octave when it's not the root, and that's not a good thing. You can have it's essentially when you're harmonising a bass voice, you can do the octave below if it's the root note. Like if the melody's a G, you play a G in the bass. If the melody's a B and you're in the key of G, no, don't play the B in the bass. My rule of thumb is if you can play the third, go ahead and play the third, because thirds sound great, or tenths sound great for the same reason. If you're any doubt, play the root note. The root note will always work, It won't necessarily be the best choice, but it will always work. The fifth, which in this case would be the D, when all else fails, use the fifth. But the fifth will probably be the one you use the least. But yes, there will be times when you want to use the fifth. The fifth can give you a great sound, playing the fifth and the bass instead of playing the root. Can be great, but it's a specialised thing. You've got to use it at the right time. Anyway, so if I go, I mean that works, right? That's the root, the E minor and the root. So that's playing the G, which is the third above the E, and a third below the B, which is the note that's being sung. And that works. It's got a nice effect, but the problem is you're playing G twice. So you've got no movement. You've got no movement in the bass, which, you know, it could be a good thing to have no movement for effect. Get a nice effect by just playing the same bloody note all for a bunch of bars. It can work, but for the moment I'm just going to stick with the standard process of always moving from one bass note to another. Never stay in the same bass note, 2 notes running. It's my standard principle. It's not always, I do break it from time to time, and other people break it. There's good reasons to break it, but that's just the general rule. That's what I do. And then you've got Straight to the Day, which is a B, right? And obviously a B, a third below that will be a G, and the note, the chord we're harmonising here is a G, so it's a no-brainer. That's a G. If you can play the third below it, it's usually the right thing, the third below. Not always, but usually it's either the third below or it's the root. So that definitely works. Now we jump down to that note's a D, and so the root would be a D. It's always going to work. Put a D in, and then it's just the chords are repeated, but the melody is not repeated. Not exactly the same. No, definitely not the same. Oh, actually, no, it's not the same chords even. So the next line is more than a third is growing. So the more is a G there. More than a third is growing. I could use anything there. The G's probably got to be a G. If you're trying to harmonise a chord, harmonise a note, and the root note of the chord is the note, it's almost always got to be the root note. Like you could try that, which is the third. You try the fifth. Notice that the fifth does not work down low. But if you do it an octave higher, it does work. Still wouldn't use it in this case, but it doesn't sound wrong. Sounds fine. But an octave below, that's a D, right? Octave below, just jarry. So no. Like I say, using the fifth note of the chord is reserved for special situations. Certainly do use it, but usually not. So in this case, it's a G. It's just a G. More than a third. So that's the seventh, right? Third is growing. It certainly works using the root note, which is the E minor. I could use the lower E minor. Now here's another case. It's a D, right? The seventh above the E. But I could use a G, which is the third note of the chord. Works perfectly. Totally usable. And I can use the B, the fifth. Here is a case where I can use the fifth because the D is a third above the fifth, right? So it works. This is the art of arrangement. I've got a range of possible things I can use. I could use the E, the root, I can use the G, which is the third note above the root, or I can use the D, which is a third below the note that's being sung. All of these three choices can work. So it's just a matter of looking at which one you want to do. If I want to use the G again, that means I'm using the G twice in a row, and I get this effect. You see? Twice in a row. Do I want twice in a row? Usually not. So let's try the B. Oh, sorry. Losing track of what I'm doing. Got to start with the G. Could work. The fifth, again. Fifth is always the most difficult one to assign. I don't think it works. So I think the best option there is the B. Sorry, it's the B, yeah. B is the best option. The other thing you can do is walk up. This is the creative element of arrangement, right? You hear things in your head, you hear ideas. The more you play through the piece, the more you experiment, the more you hear things. Like, so I just heard this idea that I can, instead of playing minims in the bass, I could play crotchets. I could do 4 crotchets in the bar walking up. We'll just try and see if it works. So I could start on a G. I mean, I don't know, something like that. Experiment. You just walk up a bit. Putting the seventh in the bass. Now, if you read Rimsky-Korsakov's book, he says you can put the seventh in the bass so long as you don't use the seventh anywhere else. So E minor 7, I could put the D in the bass, and you get that. But if you played a D somewhere else, you get this, which works just as well, I think. So it's not necessarily right. But that's the way he saw it. If you played the seventh in the bass, you can't play it in the top. Anyway, it's just a possibility. That could work, right? That could work. What do you reckon? This could mean changing the chord though. If I insist on going up by 1 note of the scale each time, like that's questionable. This is another thing. If the melody's up here in the treble, you can get away with stuff in the bass really easily. In other words, if you're backing a female singer, doing arrangements for a female singer, you can get away with a lot of stuff in the bass because the female's not going below there, and if you're doing a soprano, they're probably not going below here, right? So all the stuff's up here. So you can get away with things like what I was just doing. try it down low where a bass would sing it, where I'm going to sing it. Some of those notes don't necessarily work. Some of them. So let's try it. I mean, you can argue that's alright. You can argue that's alright. That's the one that worries me the most, the A. That works really well, the 7th at the top. Originally it was supposed to be an A minor, but I can actually jump from the D7 there. That's a D7 to an A minor. D7. The rest is fine. I can make that work. This is my only concern. I think it'll be right. Is that the ideal? What if I go back down? I lost a bit there. How did I lose something? And then back to G. Yeah. I mean, when you find something like that, you'd be a fool not to use it. And this is the difference between the hack and the genius. Finding things like that. Finding things that aren't according to the formula. Like I've got these general principles that I apply, but I'm always on the lookout for something else. Because I know that general principles are fine, but what takes it to the next level is hearing some new bass line that isn't in the general principles, like that. So I put it in, and I'm good to go. So I'm just going to muck around with this a bit more. It's a laborious process. Like I was telling you before, it's a meticulous and laborious process, arrangement. It's not straightforward. It doesn't flow like a melody. Like if I'm writing a melody, I'll just hear it in my head and write it down, or I'll hear parts of it in my head and I'll write them down and I'll experiment with them. It'll all just come together, and then the chords will come together, and I'll push it and manipulate it, blah blah blah, until it's done. But this, you've got to work within the existing framework of what the melody is. Now I can tweak the chords a bit. I'm going to, because of this jumping between the D7 and the A minor. I can jump between the two in order to make this walk up work. things like a walk up, a walk down, or the other thing is things in the... So another thing you can do is emulate, if you've got a nice little run up the top, you can consider matching it, harmonizing it, matching it a third down or a 10th down, like this. Tenths will always work, thirds will always work, right? If you want to. Cute. C major 7. Major 7's a fantastic chord because that leading note is so close to the tonic, it's dying to get back to the tonic and gives this yearning sound. It's yearning for the tonic. Anyway, I'm going to muck around with this a bit more, and I'll probably go back to the computer and update it there. So be back, and I'll be back. All right. Well, I was going to go over to the computer and type in what I'd written, but before I did that, I thought I'd just muck around with it a bit more. This is what arrangement's all about. You muck around, you try things, you solve problems. So there was a whole second line there that I didn't go through with you, so I'll go through that. And I made some little changes here and there. So I'll just take it through from the top, just the first 3 lines, which is half of the song actually. So the first line has mostly been done already, so I'll just play through. Okay, so that was originally like this. Because I was trying to follow the C chord. This is all C, right? But then it comes in half a beat early on a D chord. So we need to change the left hand to an F sharp. And then normally you'd have, this is the start of the next beat, the low E. So normally it would have been 4 quavers on C, then 4 quavers on D, but because it came in a quaver early, I've got to jump the gun and hit an F sharp with the left hand, and then come in with the big first beat of what's supposed to be the D chord, even though the D's already started a quaver early. I've got to come in, but the right hand's already jumped the gun. I've already got that. And then the left hand comes in with the start of the beat. So it's all a bit weird, and then because I'm not playing notes that are all in the chord, this is a chord of D, right? Then we've got a B, which is not in D, we've got an A, which is, and a G, which is not. So because of that, I've got to move in some notes that are not on the chord in the left hand to balance it, right? So instead of being something like, instead of being that, and obviously that doesn't work, that's a genuine discord. So I've got to move that C, that F sharp has to go down to a D. I mean, it could be other things, but D's in the chord and it harmonises with the G. That's why I chose the D. So you want to try to get both bases covered. You're playing notes in the right hand in a melody that are not in the chord. That can't be helped. That can't be changed. That's the melody. That's the set. But the left hand, you have to make that G work with a D chord, and the best way to do that is just to play the D note that will harmonise with the G. Obviously the F sharp will not, and the A will probably not. I mean, you could, an A7 would include a G, so it's possible, but it's not going to work very well most of the time. like if I tried it, I'd get this. So there's a G and an A together. It's not the worst. As I say, they're both in the A7, so you can get away with it, but it's probably best to do a D. By the way, this piano is out of tune. The reason I haven't brought it back into tune is because this place was burgled by arsehole or arseholes as yet unknown, and they stole my tuning hammer for the piano, so I can't tune my piano. So that's the reason it's out of tune. Yes, I know it's out of tune. It's not so bad that I can't work, but it's irritating, and I'm sure it's irritating the viewer as well, but that's the reason. So I went, sorry, I jumped ahead. It was like this. So it could be. That was the alternative. Or you could try a G, but then you've got a unison that is not the root note of the chord, so you don't want it. So you really got no choice. It has to be the D. Like, it's not the ideal. It's a fourth, an octave and a fourth. It's not the ideal, but it does work, so that's what we're going with. So a lot of these problems, they break down to just a few choices, and you just have to pick the one that works. In this case, it's the D. Sorry, is that right? No. Now what I originally had written here was, but that didn't work because of the two G's that are in unison. Even though they are the root note, I could easily avoid them by just moving it up. That was just a lucky one. They all fitted, all the notes in the simple arpeggio just fitted with the melody. So it worked really well. It certainly doesn't always go like that. Alright, so the first thing was, that's what was written, because that E is in the C chord, but obviously it doesn't go with the A, which is again the D chord jumping in a quaver early. So I had to change that to an F sharp from the E to an F sharp, so you get like that. So I had written here, that would be a typical arpeggio, but it doesn't work because you've got that ninth that doesn't belong, because you've just got a simple run down F sharp, E, D. So the E doesn't belong in the chord, so you've got to modify your left hand to fit. So I put in C with it, C, and then you're back to the D with an F sharp and a D in the melody, which is of course a sixth. So that's the first line. So that's what I fixed up, and then we get to the second line, which I didn't do on camera. Now it's now the E minor section here. This E minor section again worked perfectly. Sorry. Let's try that again. Because the D, which is not in the E chord, but it is in E minor 7 chord, it goes with the G. And it's just a fluke that it it was also in the simple arpeggio. So that worked. Like all these E minors that actually worked just by sheer luck. But the G in front did not work, so I had to modify it. So I had like this. That would be the simple arpeggio, but you can't do that because those two are unison, which you don't want. So in order to fit the B and the D, I just switched them around. So instead of being B and D, I'll just do D and B. Nice easy way to do it. The other thing was, I just experimented and I thought, the B, that's a D, right? And the chord is a G. So what we want, you can do it with a G because the root note always works, right? Or what about if I used a B, which would be a third below, right? Sorry. And I thought, that's really nice. It's a little bit different to the harmony used in the first line. It's slightly different, just putting a B in instead of a G, but it works and I think it's good. So again, we've got this jumping in half a note early with a D. We're on C, we jump in half a note early with a D, and so I had to allow for that by putting in this F sharp instead of the G, right? Because it would have, like I did in the first line, just exactly like the first line, although the notes are different, but the principle's the same. But then we've got this run up. That has to be on a D, right? So the first note's fine, but then the next note, like a natural arpeggio, would be like this. So you got two notes there that aren't good. You know, you could maybe get away with if you had to, but let's fix them. So we fix them. So instead of being, so it's a G on the chord of D, which doesn't belong. We can't, a fourth doesn't belong. So I'll just put a B in the bass, which would be a tenth below, right? Or tenth or a third. Oh, it's probably a third when you're singing it with a bass. Where are we? Then we've got an A, which has got back in the D chord again. So I'll just play a D with that. And then the next note's a B, which again is not in the chord of D, so I'll put a G below that to harmonise with it. So you get, I'll just play that bar again. Right, so now they all harmonise. Just have to adjust. Don't be too fixated on the chords. The chords can be suspended, chords can be altered. You can shuffle multiple chords in the space of one chord if that's what is required for counterpoint. This is counterpoint. Two notes against each other. Right, two or more notes against each other. Then we've just got this bit. Whoops. That's how I did it. This is handwritten, which is not so easy to sight read as proper printed out manuscript. That's why I'm making mistakes, apart from the fact I'm not a great pianist in the first place. So it was a G chord, so it would have been something like this, which doesn't work, or what? Oh, sorry. Try that again. You can't do that because that's unison. So we try. You can't do that because that clashes. So what I did was, and also I thought again, instead of, because it's a D note, it's a D in the melody, and it's a G chord. So what I'll do is I'll try a B underneath it in the bass, like this. And that's good, right? Oh, sorry. It's good effect, I think. And it provides a bit of variety. It's good to mix them up a bit, so, you know, early on I might have used a G, and then later on I might use a B, even though it's a G chord. Right, so that's the reason I did that. I've lost track of where I am. Oh yeah, here we are. Yeah, here I am. So that was good. Now the problem was this, you got a G chord and a B to an A, so you don't want to play the B, so the next note has to be a D or a G. I mean, and we're coming up from a B, I could have done that, but I just thought, I'd do that instead. Anyway. So this is a C chord, so normally it would have been, sorry, that's a ninth, probably doesn't belong there, and that's an ugly fourth. Fourths sound really good in the brass because it's a natural interval, but it is a bit coarse. Like it is harmonious, but it's coarse. It's a rough sound. It's a rough sound, so try to avoid that. And so you got this D, right? So that's a ninth. It's rough. Or if you played an E against it, it's a seventh, which is even rougher. So neither of those are really acceptable. I mean, not for me anyway. So again, change it. The D, effectively, what was a minimum of the C chord has now become a crotchet of C chord and then a G chord. Or no, a D. It's a D, G. So we're going. That's what we're doing. This is the kind of things you can do. This is why it's fun to do arrangement. It's got this implied harmony happening, which is really good. And then you go back to a D. No. To the end of the phrase, right? Now it was a D. Whoops. So the A would have been too far, a step too far. Now the first problem was the D, how to voice the D. I could have done, I could do that, or I can do it like this. I mean, it doesn't matter, doesn't make much difference in this particular case. So I think this is easy to play and it probably works slightly better. So it's a D, D, E, A over a D chord, but the E of course doesn't fit. A ninth again doesn't fit. I mean, ninth is a great sounding chord, but you've got to be careful where you put it. You don't want to put it everywhere. So I just made that chord a C, like that. Just that quaver becomes a C. This is the thing. This is counterpoint. So often in counterpoint you have to harmonise every note, even if it's every quaver. different chord for every quaver, right? If that's what's required, that's what you have to do, and it's easy enough. Right, the standard step down at the end of the phrase, right? And we've still got 2 beats to go. So you come back on. There's 4 beats of G, so just follow the arpeggio down and up. But you do want to make sure that you come back on the D, because then you go back to the G. If you end it on the G instead, it won't have the right effect. It's G, and then it goes to a G, so you're not moving. You've got to have the sensation of moving. Even though it's still a G, the phrase ends on a G and the next line starts on a G, but you've got to give the impression that it's moving by having a D. Right? Come on, Mars. So there you go. There's the D. And this is what we were doing before. But I don't think we harmonised this one properly. So what I did was, it was B, A, G, E. Right? So we give it a... it's a -7, almost make a -7, so we just make it a D there, and that'll be, so you got a -7th. Now the problem is then it goes to an A, which is out of the chord, so you've got to harmonise that, and you get an A -7, and then E -7 again, and E -7 again. It's just that A has to be harmonised, so that becomes an A -7, and then you're back to the E -7 for the last 2 quavers. Oh, so listen to this. Again, it's jumping the gun early with the early D, the quaver early. That's fine. We just have to make sure that we end our run up here on the D in order to match the early D, because it's ambiguous. We want it to be in the G chord, but also in the D chord. So that's D. In order to do that, I went an octave low. Hang on. Now this breaks the 2 rules, so we've got the unison, which is not desirable, but there's no alternative, or no good alternative. I experimented with a bunch of possibilities to avoid doing that. Remember, but I have to end on the D anyway. I mean, maybe I could end on an F sharp. Maybe I could end on the F sharp. I guess that'd be alright. I guess it'd be alright. Right. Fixed it up. That's the beauty of coming back later, you see. And then 7. And it all fits, right? It all fits, so that works. And then we've got this run up that we're working on. One of the problems there was I wanted this A, I wanted to come up, but if I do that, I run out of space for the right hand. I wanted to do this, so the A and the F sharp followed by the D, because it's the F sharp and the D that's a melody, but if I do that, I can't use the A with the left hand, which I want, because I want to be coming up, you know. Like that. I can't do that. So I'll have to, so I'm hitting the D twice, which is kind of not what I want to do, but sometimes you just have to, sometimes there is no best answer, no perfect answer sometimes. Sometimes you just have to do what you have to do, and that's a case in point. Alright, so now I've explained all the missing bits in the first half. So it took me an hour or hour and a half or something to fill in all those extra bits. Alright, now I'll go to the computer and I'll type them in. Alright, I'm back at the computer and I'm going to type these notes in. I'm going to fix up the things. You can see the difference between wrong specs, try these ones. You can see the difference here between what I was saying might work and what I actually ended up doing. So you'll notice that these notes are all in the key of G, they all had to be moved up a bit. The E minor chords were fine. These things, the alto parts were they were fine. No need to change. This had to be moved up because the D came in a quaver early, and what have I done here? I can't read my own writing. An F sharp, was it? I don't remember why that should be an F sharp. Don't remember why that should be. Anyway, if it's wrong, I'll correct it when I play through this tomorrow. I'll correct it. Here's a bug. I lowered that and it didn't lower, or it doesn't appear to lower, but actually it did lower, and as soon as I press one space down, it jumps down 2. So, yep, it's buggy. Certainly is buggy. Same problem again as in the first bar here. The G just needed to go up a bit. The E was, of course, E minor was fine. That had to be an F sharp. This note, this D, didn't work with the E. It has to come down to a C. That was fine. And then we have the second line. So we have to put all this stuff in that I didn't already put in. Starting with a B below. Oh, here's another bug for you. You can't enter anything below the staff because I've moved the staff, so now it won't work. I've got to find a kludge to get around it, which I know how to do it, but it's still a pain. So what I'm doing is entering everything an octave high. Long as I'm on the staff, it will enter it. If I'm off the staff, like that, it will not enter it. Whereas normally it would. But because I've moved the staff, it won't work. So, you know, that's not good. It's not good. It's another bug. There are many, so that's why I do not advise this product. Don't really recommend it because it's just so many bucks. I don't think I want that to be like that. Alright, so so what I'm going to do is, it's just these low notes that need to be typed in ahead of schedule. Something doesn't look right here. What have I done wrong? B, E, yeah, I'm doing things wrong. It's getting late, I should really, no, that's right. B, 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 read the bass clef, Mars. B, E, C, D, B, E, C, D, that's fine. B, yeah, I'm getting confused this time of night. If you want to get confused, try reading the alto clef or the tenor clef. That's fun. Highly recommend that if you're a bit bored one day and you want to get confused. Go read some music in the tenor clef. It's not that hard. You get used to it after a while. But yeah, it's a bit different. Alright, so they're all the correct note, I hope. Now I'm just going to lower them all. So the way you get around this bug is you just type them in octave high and then just lower it and then they'll be fine. It'll all work. It's just a pain to deal with is all. I still went wrong with that one. And that one went wrong too. Go. Definitely time for bed. So what have we got here? It's a G chord, right? Oh my god. Even the G won't work. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I might just raise this clef up a bit. Maybe it'll start working again if I do that. Oh, these are all going to be changed to the voice 2, of course. Otherwise, it won't. It defaults to voice 1, and you go to type something in as a quaver on top of a minim, and it doesn't work. So you've got to change to a different voice, and then it's fine. Took me ages to learn all these tricks. Oh god, come on Mars. It's supposed to be quavers here, not minims, not crotchets. I really do need to go to bed, or at least, yeah, I need to go to bed. I've done too much, I think I've done too much arrangement today because I finished off a large chunk of arrangement and then I've started this one. I just got inspired. I thought, you know, it could make some interesting content. Although I don't know who the hell, I mean, most people aren't going to want to see this. It's only going to be music specialists who, you know, are really into music, who want to know how to do multi-point harmony and counterpoint. And maybe this explanation will be a bit refreshing rather than reading some very dry book or following a bunch of very specific rules. I mean, I'll make it very clear that all rules are there to be broken. You just have to know when to break them. You know, all principles are just principles, general guidelines. You shouldn't be too hung up on them. I mean, I had a discussion with an experienced trained musician who told me how to fix some perceived flaw, what he perceived as a flaw in one of my arrangements. And his solution may well have been according to correct theory, but it wasn't as good an effect. And I said to him, yeah, I can see what you're doing, and I can see that it's not wrong, but it isn't as good as what I've done. You know, because in the particular instance that we were looking at, although mine may not have followed standard practice, it was the most effective solution. Sounded good, which is ultimately is the only thing that matters. Does it sound good? That's all that matters. In the end, all other rules go out the door. Oh, here we go. We've got to lift up this clef. I'll just lift it up and then it'll work, probably. And then I'll bring them back down later when it's all done. I mean, yes, it's a pain, but I'll just get used to it. How low can we go? Not low enough. One thing I do is I do like low bass, and I will routinely go right down the bottom of the piano, especially for for octaves in the left hand. I'll often go right to the bottom note, the low A, because you play that with an octave above it, and it works really well. I mean, if your piano's any good, it should speak. It should speak and sound good. And one of the tests of a piano is, what are the low notes like? A good piano. A good piano, the low notes should be rich and full of character. Pleasant to listen to, the low notes. In a crappy piano, they sound woody and indistinct and not very nice, right? And so if you have a shit piano to play on, you're going to eschew the usage of those notes, which is bad for people that have got a decent piano. Those notes are great to use. I mean, they're there for a reason. Alright, so these all go down to 2. Actually, those don't have to because they're just octaves, but these do. Make them voice 2. Okay. These guys are octaves. So to make octaves, you just copy that. We lower it by an octave. And copy it back in over the top. God! Bedtime. Alright. Now these things were all voice 3, so that I could put these harmonies on the bottom. So that was a D. I didn't harmonise it with the B because I wanted to allow room for the B to come in later. That's a G, so it wants to go to the D like that. There we go. And the same principle here. Oh yeah, so the principle here was, it's an E minor, but it could just as easily be an E minor 7. And E minor 7 gives you a richer sound. So rather than playing a B and an E, which would go with the B to make an E minor, I put a D in there, it becomes E minor 7, and a nice richer sound, and it's on the wrong bloody clef, isn't it? It's on the wrong clef. Yeah, what a pain. Now it's too high. Oh, God. Yeah. These are the things you have to, if you ever use this product. Which I'm not recommending, but you see it's jumping from one clef to the other there. Man, so many problems. If I lower that clef back again, it's still jumping to the wrong clef. Absolute pain to work with. So I've probably got to raise that clef to make this work. I mean, I'm sure that was in the right spot, but it must have been just slightly off, and it's come in at the wrong spot. God damn it! Now the mouse is slipping. Let me out of here, for fuck's sake. I'll be glad to get away, but I'm just got to finish this. just got to finish this. Now what do I want? I want a G and a D, right? Now, again, it's come into the side, and I don't think I was off, but obviously the computer said I was. Pissed. So I've got to take it down 2 octaves in order to make that work. I mean, it's just bullshit. But anyway, whatever. This is the way things are in the world. You just have to put up with a fucking almighty amount of shit. I want a B. There's a B, but then I want a D below that. Which will be too low to type it in direct, so I'll have to transpose it down like that. Alright. Now we've got an A and an F sharp here. Although it might be already here. I can just copy it from here and save myself the trouble. Pop it in there. Again! It's doing this all the time, I swear. I was not in the wrong spot. What the hell? Man. Why will it not play the game? That's definitely the spot, and it's definitely not working. If I take it from somewhere else, I can. I've still got to fill that line in. If I take both of them, and then start from the start of the line, how will that work? Probably not well. Alright, I'll have to type them in manually. I see what's happened. I see. I get it. So what's happened there is this voice, which is at the moment voice 1, it's trying to jump in. It won't let you jump in early on top of another minim. It's a minim and it wants to follow up a minim later, but I'm coming in one early, a quaver early, so it has to be, I have to make room for it by changing that away from being a minim. That's what the problem was. I mean, once you understand it, it's okay, but it's just such a pain to deal with. Mind you, other programs are worse, or can be worse, depending on what you like, what suits you. Alright, there's the A and the F sharp, so that's fine. Just took me ages, but we got there. And now we can't type it in because it's jumping to the bottom staff because we moved the staff. We had to move the staff in order to make room, but the way that the data is stored internally with this program is wrong. It's the reason we get such a horrible mess all the time, and it can't be changed. You can't change the internal storage. It doesn't represent, what it needs to do is represent notes as notes. Instead, it represents them as MIDI events, I think. And that's the problem. I don't give a shit about MIDI events. I'm not interested. It's not the way I work. Don't work with MIDI, I work with notes. I want notation. Notes should be stored as notes, and they're not. So it can't easily be fixed. So I just have to put up with it. I was going to put an F sharp in there, but stuff it. I don't think it's really needed. I do need to put some sharps in. No. No, we don't. We don't need to put sharps in. Just check all that. Yeah, the ultimate way to check is you just print it out, play it on a piano, and it will all be clear. It will immediately be clear, all the mistakes of what you have made, which there's always some. So always print it out on scrap paper and then get it right before I print it out on non-scrap paper. I mean, I've got plenty of scrap paper from all the from all the different iterations of things that I do. No. Oh God, no. So I thought I changed these to voice 2, but did I not do that? I did do that. What the hell's the problem? I don't know, but now it wants to work, right? Oh, it can't work because it's got to be brought up. Pain, pain, pain. Oh. So these MIDI events are then stored in relation to the screen, I guess. The data is stored in relation to the screen, which is stupid. It should be in relation to where it is on the staff. But, well, that's the input. No, the input line's different. So the input line works on where it is on the screen, but if the staff is moved, it won't understand it. It doesn't understand it if the staff is moved. Or it'll understand it if the staff moves a little bit, but if the staff moves a lot, it doesn't understand it. I mean, I hate to think what an absolute mess the code is. And I can imagine it's just horrific. Which would be why they can't fix it. I don't know what the latest version of Forte is like, by the way. But I could imagine that the whole thing had to be rewritten from ground up. You know, which is a lot of work. And managers hate that. I mean, as a programmer myself, I understand that these things have to be rewritten from the ground up. Which is just wasting time, chasing your tail, constantly dealing with impossible problems. Because the original author stored the data in a stupid way, in a really stupid way. And there's nothing you can do about it other than rewrite it from the ground up. Once you decide you've got to change the way the data's stored, you know, you just have to start again. And management have got this idea, oh, it's like a car or something, and it's got a bit of a dodgy transmission, so you just swap out the transmission and everything will be fine. But you can't do that. You can't do that with computing software. It doesn't work that way. Everything's dependent on everything else, usually. I mean, there's the theory that you have a top-down approach and you have compartmentalization and things are in modules and you can change one module, won't affect any other module. That's a theory, but that's not the way it works in the real world. Alright, so that's done. I just need to put in these harmony notes, which are going to be probably a nightmare. Alright, so this one's has to be a G and a D below it. Alright, G and a D below it. And this one has to be a G and an E below it. This one has to be a C and a G. Alright, let's move all these down. Two octaves, this one has to go down 1 octave. And this has to be 1.5 notes. And then we have to come in with this famous F sharp, or in this case, A F sharp. In other cases it was an A, no, D A, has to be D A, right. What a pain. There's a D, there's an A. Take it down 2 octaves. Alright. And make it an extra quaver long. Boom. And we've got a G and a D here. Oh, great. Just fantastic. So if you don't know all these problems, you will be tearing your hair out trying to get any sense or how to resolve these problems with this program. You'll be tearing your hair out like I was when I was learning it. It makes me wonder why I persisted, actually, but persist I did. And it turned out there was a finite number of bugs. There was a lot of them, but they were a finite number, and you just had to be creative to work out ways around everything. Alright, A and F sharp here. And I'll do A and F sharp. We take it down. And D and a B. D and a B. Boom. That's about it. Could fiddle with some chords. What did I do? C, D, G, C. I said that was a D, this is a G. Harmonising every note. If you're going to do 4-part counterpoint, which you will need if you're going to do some intricate SATB work, choral work, you know, a la Bach or Handel or any of those counterpoint masters. I mean, I've done a good chunk of that sort of stuff. What you have to do, it's not that bad. You just have to go through and harmonise. Start by harmonising the melody. Every note of the melody, harmonise it separately. And make sure you're happy with the result. And then go ahead and write your parts. But don't write your parts until you've done that, because you're going to need it. And incidentally, that is a lot of fun. If you like this kind of stuff, it is a lot of fun doing that. And a bit of D7. A minus 7. Right. So let's move this up. Okay. And move that down maybe one, if we can. Can't. I need to change these voicings, so all of these which are voice 1 need to be made to voice 2 in the right hand. So to do that, I select all of the right hand from bar 5 to bar 14. Right? Watch this. Give me all of the notes from the right hand of the piano. I want voice 1 from 5 to 14, I think it was, wasn't it? Yep. and we just make them all voice 2. And watch what happens to all the mess. Whoa! So much better immediately. And while we're at it, we'll just change all the voice 3s to voice 1s. This is the kind of stuff that's difficult to do in other notation programs. Once you learn how to do it in this, it's quick and very powerful. If you don't get hit with bugs. And make sure you save your work. Make sure you save your work often, because it's really bad when you just spent an hour on something and you have forgotten to save it and it disappears. That is not fun when that happens. So don't be that person. Don't have that happen to you. If you haven't had it happen to you yet, it's a pleasure that awaits you at some later stage. If you're really smart, maybe it'll never happen, but it's probably going to happen at some point. Do I put this F sharp in here? I'll tell you, I'm going to put it in, and if I use it, I use it. If I don't, I mean, I can just delete it if I don't like it. It's supposed to be voice 2, which is why it's a quaver. Now I change it to voice 2, and bang, it turns back into a crotchet. You have to know this stuff. Alright. Oh, I can press play. Hang on, let's go to the start, shall we? Something didn't sound right there. I think that's C. I love that run-up, but you will notice one thing about the run-up. We've got these arpeggios. It's nice and smooth arpeggio stuff, and then all of a sudden you've got this block bass, you know, crotchet block bass, which is completely out of character with the rest. So what I might have to do is change something. Either change the flowing bass around that and make it all block crotchets is a possibility, or maybe I have to get rid of those block crotchets, even though they sound great. I might have to get rid of them. Anyway, I'll look at it tomorrow. That's the thing about art. Sometimes, you know, the overriding thing about art is you've got to, the overall package has to be the thing that's most important. It doesn't matter if you've spent a heap of time working on something that's great. If that great thing doesn't fit with the whole, it has to go, because the whole is what counts, is what matters, not some individual bit. So you don't want to be afraid to throw away a perfectly good piece of stuff. All right. I'll come back tomorrow after a good night's sleep and after I've played through it and continue on from there. But this is already should be giving you a very good idea of just how much work it is to do arrangement and how clever arrangement is, how much thought has to go into it. And if you thought arrangers are hacks, you can think again. All right, we'll be back later.